And in case you're wondering, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Ronaldo trying to take the ball away from him there at that particular occasion. Where does this victory and performance put Portugal, do you think, Diddy, in terms of who's most likely to go very far in this tournament and obviously go on to win then?
Well, it may sound harsh, and it kind of pains me to say, because the man we see here, he's done wonders and wonderful things for football. His record, the goals he scored, is simply unbelievable, and we probably won't see this for the next 20, 30 or 40 years. But the fact is that Portugal without him is a different team. And I think they are contenders without him. They looked the full package today. And the shackles were off. I watched them at the Aviva last year here. They weren't playing well. They lost a few days after to Serbia, which meant they had to go via a playoff, which they won to go to the World Cup. Because I always felt in the last couple of years when his powers were fading and waning that they always feel under pressure to give him the ball. The first time they do get the ball, they get a head up, they look where Ronaldo is. Similar to what Argentina does with Messi, but Messi still produces on a regular basis, and they didn't have that today. And they just played as a team. Obviously then the kid comes in, he scores a hat-trick in his first start at a World Cup. Wonderful team performance, and it looked like there's also weight off the shoulders of the players. We talked before that, of course, his responsibility. But if you lose a player like him, somebody else has to step up. It's a chance for somebody else or for other players. And you've got to say, it's hard to pick one out today. Obviously, Ramos scored these goals, but wonderful team performance. And, before the game, I would have thought Morocco is so well organised. I think they give whoever wins tonight a game. I think Portugal will march on now and go into the semis.
Fernando Santos is going to get a lot of credit for making these changes. We did mention earlier that the newspaper survey within Portugal showed that 70% of people over there were in favour of Ronaldo being dropped for tonight. But in many ways, has Ronaldo made this so much easier on the public and on the manager as well, with his actions over the course of not just the last few months, but even the last couple of weeks, when it was still all about Cristiano Ronaldo, but very much so away from Portugal?
Yeah, his performances weren't up to speed, and it took a long time for the Portuguese public to recognise that. It was a big call for Santos to make that decision to drop him.
But was it still as big though, Karen?
It's not as big now, and I think Didi was completely right. They played with so much freedom. It's definitely the best I've seen João Felix play in a Portuguese shirt. Fernandes was everywhere as well. And they just have a bit more cohesion in attack because they're intricate players. They like to give and go. And that's not Ronaldo's game. He's become this kind of target man, get in the box. And I think because Portugal don't really play with a huge amount of width apart from their fullbacks, sometimes they're forcing crosses in from central areas, and they didn't need to do that tonight. They were able to just have more link-up play, and then when the time was right, release the likes of Dallo, who put in a great cross for one of their 6 goals tonight.
You talked about the pressure on top of the players, but especially Gonzalo Ramos, who was coming in. We saw from the very, very first strike in the first half, I mean, he didn't look like he felt any pressure on him whatsoever.
Well, he probably had the least pressure because he had nothing to lose today. He's coming in for Ronaldo. He's got a lot to win, very little to lose, and I think that's how he played. And you could just see enjoys being given the chance and just do what he does best, and this is put the ball in the back of the net, and this is a sensational strike. It's a brutal hit, and when you score a goal after a few minutes coming on, confidence is building, and that's the most important thing for a centre forward. This is a very neat finish because he knows the defenders behind him, just sticks his foot out, slightly deflected the other cross, and just a little toe poke through the keeper's legs. Brilliant goal. And this is what confidence does to players. He goes, thinks it over the keeper. Easy game.
I think the yard of pace that he showed for that second goal more than justifies his decision, because I don't think Ronaldo gets to that. Maybe the other ones he might have produced a moment of magic. Those were 2 special goals. But that was an excellent team goal, getting across the front of the defender like that. And it just shows that he can bring that variety to their play.
I think it also shows all the 3 goals, all different goals. The first one, a brutal strike into the near post from about 10, 11 yards. The keeper doesn't even get a chance to get his hands up. The second, finesse, where he just sticks his foot out. He knows just a little dink will do. and the third one he lobs it over the keeper with the other foot. And I think he's an all-round player. Can score with his head. He's got a yard of pace. Holds the ball up well, and the dynamics of the team changed dramatically. It's a completely different game Portugal play than they did when Ronaldo was there. And it was a huge call, but I think it was a call probably had to make at some stage.
He's playing with Benfica, playing out of his skin with Benfica. So it's certainly, if you look at the form books, it's not a huge decision from Santos to make today. There'll be quite a few clubs, you would have to say, imagine, who will be looking at this tournament, looking at that performance tonight. He was linked with PSG during the summer. They may be about to lose someone, who knows, someone else very important from their team. So how do you think he would fare if he's doing this at the World Cup on his first start?
I think there's often a story out of the tournament, and it's kind of just a pity for him that he hasn't been given the opportunity to show more, only having those two big parts to play. We saw the quality of Leo's goal at the end, and he was picked ahead of him. That's because his form has been so incredible. He's putting up the numbers domestically, and I think he will be on a lot of people's hit list come January.
What do you think, Diddy? Who do you think is likely to go from, and where would he fit in well? I know we're only basing it on this one performance against the Swiss team, whom you said were a little bit disappointing.
So.
I'd never buy a player on the back of a performance at a tournament. The one that stands out for me is James Rodriguez from Colombia, who was, I don't know who bought him. I think Real Madrid, ended up at Bayern Munich. Don't even know where he plays now. Some of these players are different animals when they have their national team shirt on, and of course he's been brilliant for Benfica. If he carries on that form, then I'm sure there's a lot of takers in the summer, and you just wonder how they produce these players, because in Germany we never had a centre forward for the last 15 years. I know Nunes is Uruguayan, but Benfica lost him last season. Next one is there, scored 15 goals already this season. Benfica still unbeaten in a group with PSG. They played in the Champions League. Now he comes in, scores a hat-trick. Maybe we should look at other countries, how they develop their players.
Oh, well, that's really interesting. OK, we'll take on Morocco in the last 8. We've talked so much about Ramos because, obviously, the hat-trick hero today, but 6 goals in total. And interestingly, the other goal scorers also tell a bit of a story. So we had Pepe earlier on, but it's another man who was maybe slightly unexpectedly chosen, Rafael, who came in the second half. And
I mean, Cancelo is a household name for anyone who watches the Premiership, so you're always going to be surprised when he's not on. But I think Guerrero, again, he got a lot of joy down the left-hand side, and this is just a brilliant team goal. Again, you have everyone kind of involved from Felix, and we've had so much praise of Ramos that we almost skip by the fact that he got himself an assist there as well. And it's a fantastic finish, and it's a finish full of confidence, and it kind of just reflected how Portugal played that game. They had maybe a 10-minute spell in the second half when Switzerland scored where they weren't completely on top, but you always felt like they were going to carve Switzerland open at any given moment, and that's a fantastic team goal. And it was a team performance today, like Didi said earlier.
Is he going to keep his place for the next day?
I think he will, and I'm not sure. Cancelo can play either side. I think they will have. I think the reason Dalot playing today at right back was that he was worried of Vargas' pace, and I don't think Morocco's got it out in our pace. So maybe we see Cancelo coming in at right back in the next game.
As surprised as you were with the late changes, it was more who came in rather than necessarily who was left out, particularly when we talk about the Ronaldo one. So Leao was the man you thought might come in, because he's on fire for Milan the past few years, not just this year. Yeah,
and I just feel they do lack pace. It sounds a bit daft now, they're scoring 6 goals, but in the latter stage, going forward, you need pace, and he's got out in a pace. He's a brilliant player, and I love this player. If I was a manager, which obviously I'm not, I'd always find a place for him. And this is a tremendous finish. Last minute, scores his 2nd goal of the tournament. And it's another option, and it's really scary. We see some outstanding players starting games on the bench because this is the World Cup. These are the best players in the world. But for him not to start for the Portugal team is very strange, because if you look at the forward players, Ramos got a bit of pace, but he's not out and out quick. And I just feel at times you need to stretch a game, and he's the perfect player for that. But after that performance tonight, he probably has to watch from the start as well on Friday. When we were watching the England game the other day, Richie said, when we were talking about Phil Foden, he said, if a manager
isn't capable of finding a spot for someone who plays the game the way Phil Foden does, then I'd have to question the manager. Can you say something similar here? But then you look at the depth in the Portugal side, but you say he's the pace man.
Yeah, if you asked me the question before the game, I probably would have said, yeah, you've got a point. There's a case to be answered. Now it sounds a bit daft, but I think at some stage you have to bring him into the team. And he's got to sacrifice one of his flair players, because there was talk about Ken Fernandes and Bernardo Silva play together. They're similar players. At some stage he has to introduce him. And I hope it's not too late then, because once you trail by 1 or 2 goals, it might be too late, because he's best when he's got space ahead of him. So we'll see, but he's a tremendous player.
Okay, we know he did make an impact when he came onto the pitch, and we're talking about the depth that Portugal have. We've obviously already spoken about Ronaldo and the perhaps influence, the way his influence has gone the last couple of years from a Portuguese side. But when you saw when he came on the pitch, and what you've seen from what you've seen him do in this tournament, could he actually have a role to play? Maybe not the role he wants.
For me, I don't really think so. I think it was more the same, shooting into the wall unnecessarily. I think both myself and Didi agree on the changing of captain's armband being just an unnecessary showpiece, and that's what it felt like, the reaction of the crowd. It feels like a swan song for him. He doesn't have the pace. We can say it's a really good finish, but he's a mile offside.
And he surely had to have known he was so far offside. Surely he knew.
Yeah, but you never know. If you can't just stop, because he doesn't know whether somebody's behind him. It's unlikely there is. But you know, as a player, he's got about 600 goals. He didn't score them by stopping when he thinks he's offside. But I do think he's got a role to play. And he celebrated. You know, the first one he wasn't too sure how to celebrate with the players, because he had his bib on, which is obviously he's not used to. His mate Pepe scored. He was there. He was smiling, and then when he came on, we saw a smile. The fans sang his name. Obviously, the 70% back home, there are different people in the stadium, because everybody wanted to see him. And when you need a goal, because at some stage in the next 3 games, if you want to go all the way, you've got to force a goal. And there's very few teams, I think, in this tournament who can do that. And I think that was Spain's downfall today. I think France can do it to a certain extent. Argentina, I'm not sure Brazil can do it. But when you need a goal and you've got 20 minutes to go, and you stick him in the centre forward position, and you throw balls in the box, I think in the air, still he's as good as anyone. And I think he's got a role. You said he doesn't want to play the role, but he's got to play that role now, because the guy who came in scored 3 goals, so he will start on the benches the next game as well. And when you have him in the squad, and if he understands that this is his last chance to win a World Cup, and if he's on board, and I had a feeling today, didn't feel sorry for him, but I had a feeling today he understood the situation, and maybe he had a bit of sympathy for the manager as well, the way he decided with the formation. I think he's got a role to play, because he terrifies defenders, and if he comes in, his aerial price is still as good as it was. So I think we see him again, and I won't be surprised if we see him score a knockout goal as well.
And you'd back him all day for a penalty as well, if it comes to that.
You'd have to imagine as well the noise that's created when he's seen at all, but particularly when he was about to make his way onto the pitch. I wonder, does that affect his own attitude? Does it change, like the way Didi was suggesting? Does it lift the players?
I think so, and if a game did go to extra time and you were struggling to break down a team, that might just energise you somewhat, getting the crowd on side, because if it is a dour game, it can feed into your own performances, and they have the ability to change the atmosphere like that, like we heard tonight. I don't think I've ever heard anything like that for a sub coming on. So they still have that to bring to the game. He's, like you say, he's intimidating in a way, and he can intimidate teams who will still look up to him. There'll be players he comes up against now that will think, oh my God, this is Cristiano Ronaldo.
And there's no team left now with a bad defence, especially Morocco. I think they conceded only 1 goal so far. And I don't think he's a player to start at the moment, because he hasn't got the physique, he hasn't got the pace anymore. But I think he can be an outstanding sub. And that's where he's important to their team. And if he understands that, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we sit here in a few days' time and talk about a game where he made a difference.
There was quite a bit of criticism of Santos the last kind of couple of years for Portugal. In fact, you even said that tonight was the first time you've seen them play really well, despite their Nations League win a couple of years ago, in 5 years, so essentially just after they won the Euros as well. He was considered to be a bit too conservative for the players that Portugal have access to. But has this made his job from here on in so much easier now?
Yeah, 100%. It was make or break. You know, if he goes wrong today, would have been probably his last game because people would have blamed him for not playing Ronaldo. Now it worked out. They scored 6 goals, played one of the best games, or probably the best game I've seen them in a long time play. Yeah, there's no questions. And you know, at some stage he had to make the call. It was probably still a tough call, but I think it answered also the question, because people said Ronaldo's picking the team. Well, if he picked the team, he wouldn't have started on the bench. And you know, he's in charge. I think the players will respect him for it, because the players will only respect you if you make hard decisions. You know, if you always make the decision everybody expects, players will lose faith and will lose, belief in a manager. And he will have the full backing, which he probably already had in the past. And that can bring a squad together. So today was a huge game and a huge moment, I think, for Portuguese football.
Oh, okay. Huge day for Portuguese